Okay, today we're going to talk about MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller, and how it works is you have these three components in a UI. You have the model, and the model holds the data, and also some logic maybe to change that data. When the model updates, the view will update with it. Okay, so the view is the thing that displays the model, displays all that data. The view also has buttons on it, say. When you click those buttons, then it notifies the controller. The controller is the thing that ties the model and the view all together. So the controller will likely change something in the model. Now, when the model updates, the view is updated with it. And repeat. Okay, so it's a cycle. Model to view to controller to model to view to controller. Okay? So how does the model update the view? Well, in JavaFX, it does it with properties. Okay? When you see a get or a set method on a node or a class, that usually indicates a JavaFX property. So, for example, a button, we've been using set on action. So there's a property called onAction. There's also a property called text, which is the text displayed on the button. So we can set the text of the button and also get the text of the button. There's another property called disable, which is a Boolean property, and it allows us to set if the button is disabled, so grayed out and you can't click it if it is. Text fields have a text, which is the current text that's in the text field, and also a selected text. So if you just select a little bit and say a substring, you can get that selected text. Labels also have a text property. What about our own class? So here's a class called student, and it has a couple of getters and setters of things inside it. So for ID, okay, let's say you're a student, you've been assigned an ID. That ID never changes, does it? So we call this an immutable property. From JavaFX's perspective, immutable properties are the best. It can read it once, it renders it to the view, and then it never changes, right? What about for name? Note there's a getName and a setName. People can change their names. Because they are both, we call this a read-write property. Next, submission. Submission doesn't have a set submission, so you might initially think it's an immutable property. But just imagine that inside of submission, there was some other properties. We don't know what they are, but let's just say there are some other properties. And those could potentially change, right? So we call this an immutable property with mutable state. So the state of the property changes, but the property itself stays the same. And lastly, for mark. There is a get mark, but there's no actual explicit set mark. There is an add to mark method, but that doesn't directly set the mark. So we're only looking for the explicitly named set mark here. So because there's only a get mark, we call this a read-only property. Now the thing to note is, even though it's named read-only, it can still change, okay? Just JavaFX only reads from it. It never sets it.